family. I want to talk about how abortion is the modern day worship of the Canaanite god Moloch. Now, in the Bible, Moloch was this giant, bull-headed, man-bodied figure that had an opening in the center of his body where there would be fire. And the worshipers of Moloch would come and they would sacrifice their children by placing the children in the fire. Now, this was an abomination to the God of the Bible. The neighboring Canaanites engaged in this practice in which the Hebrews were warned not to adopt the practices of worshiping Moloch. Of course, if you've read the Old Testament, you know that the Hebrews would eventually fall into worshiping Moloch and sacrificing their children. This was even done by King Solomon, where he started to worship Moloch, but there's no record of him sacrificing any of his children. Now, when speaking on the topic of abortion, I have to be very sensitive because that's a sensitive issue. I'm sure there are plenty of women out there who, when they choose to take the route of abortion, it's a very strenuous and an emotional choice. Now, there are those who go about and have the procedure done with no thought of aligning themselves with being a Christian. But if you are a Christian, you have to acknowledge in the Bible, it says not to kill. It's one of the commandments. It is the world that has convinced people that a fetus or an embryo is not a real human, even though Psalms 139, chapter 13, verses 16, and Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5 specifies that God is right there as you are formed in the womb. So if God says that you are a human at the womb, then that's the word of God. When the world says that an embryo or a fetus isn't a human, that's the world. So you are now aware of what God says is a human and what the world says is a human. In Exodus chapter 21, verses 22 through 25, it specifies that there is the penalty of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth if a child in the womb is murdered through some sort of outside influence. Now, I'm sure some of those that are familiar with the Christian world have heard of those options of what to do if you're dealing with a situation of incest or rape. Adoption becomes the option in place of murdering an unborn child. And when it comes to that argument about whether or not abortion is necessary, if the mother's life is in danger, it's pretty much been well reported that that's a very, very, very rare situation. And that hardly ever happens. So that's something where, even if it does happen, at that moment, it's just best to figure out, okay, what really is the best for this situation. If it be it that the mother's life is really in danger, in that type of situation, that would more than likely be where the option comes into play. But again, according to the research, that situation hardly ever happens. There are medical procedures in this day and time that can avoid a lot of situations where the mother's life is in danger. C-section being an example. But when we're speaking about abortion, when you compare what the act actually is, it's not hard to conclude that abortion is the modern day worship of Moloch, offering your child to the fire, or in this case, offering your child to the abortion clinic, which will destroy the baby. Most of the time, the majority of the time, when a woman makes that choice, or when that choice is made to have an abortion, it is for vain reasons. The act of playing like an adult, but then not wanting to be an adult when the end result is a baby. If one takes on the responsibility of committing the act that would create a baby, then one also takes on the role saying that they are willing to deal with the consequence behind the act of making a baby. So again, when a person chooses abortion, the majority of the time, it's because it's for vain reasons. It's because they feel like, oh, well, I just don't want to have a baby right now. But you can engage in the act that would create a baby, which doesn't even out. If you engage in the act, you should be willing and prepared to deal with the results of the act. Not dealing with the results of the act puts you in a position of being vain, for you had no problem putting yourself in that position. And a lot of people don't focus on that part. In conclusion, if one is walking in the path of Jesus, or one claims to be a Christian, the options of doing the right thing are there. Adoption, not having premarital sex, or using protection, even though, the Catholic Church and that Catholic world has an issue with that. And that even goes into another area of how contraceptives is, it's a slippery slope with the Catholic way of seeing things. But the options of not dealing with the baby are there. They're there. Where abortion is unnecessary. Because according to the Bible, to kill a human is sin. So in conclusion, if one has already committed the act of abortion, the Bible speaks about forgiveness. As long as you walk in the path of Jesus afterwards and you stay on the path, you have to stay on the path in order for yourself to really prove that you're trying to be forgiven for the act of the past. But if you're already walking in the path, then abortion is not even an option. So I close out reiterating how in Psalms chapter 139, verses 13 through 16, and Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5 specifies that God is right there in the womb. And in Exodus chapter 21, verses 22 through 25, there is a penalty for murdering a child that's in the womb.